Coming in hot, 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 Liisa shares her financial tips and strategies to build wealth, have fun with finances, and be debt-free without having a restrictive budget. From bankrupt to millionaire, Liisa knows what it's like to feel as if you're living paycheck to paycheck. Her unconventional money multiplier system is the very wealth protocol that enabled her to retire 2.5 years early, pay down $100,000 of debt in 6 months, and move to her dream home at the beach. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Be sure to rate the show, give us some love. We would love your review. And remember, it doesn't matter how much money you make, it's what you do with it. And some words of advice: pay yourself first. Are you ready to partner with money? Go check out the money dating game at idatemoney.com and choose your partner. We hope you always get the date you want. Hey, everyone. Welcome to this month's Visionary Panel. I'm Liisa Drenning, your hostess, or let me say MC. And I always thought, I just got to tell this funny thing really quick. I always thought MC was MC, but it's EMCEE. I'm like, oh, okay. How silly am I, right? And I thought that was cool because, being an MC is awesome. And it's like such an honor to be asked to do something like this. And the Visionary Panels are one of my favorite things. I love bringing experts to you so you can understand, how can I increase the ROI in my business? Are you running a business or a hobby? If you're running a business, come join us, grab something cold to drink, get rid of all your distractions, because in the house today, we have PR copyright specialist. And I have to share with you, every time I typed in copyright, I wanted to do WR. and I would get, that red error. And I'm like, well, how do you spell it? What's going on here? Words are so different, right? But what's important about PR and copyright in your business? I know for me, especially working in the finance and insurance industry, you have to be very careful. I mean, I'm a licensed independent insurance broker, and if I say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing or have the wrong, copy, I can get penalized big time with that, especially because it's insurance and I'm affecting your life. It's money and I'm affecting your life. So when you think about how you're delivering stuff, are you DIYing it? Because maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you should really invest in pros that can help you get to where you want to be without any issues. Because who wants legal issues to deal with? Who wants to sit there and get an email from some angry person because you stole their trademark, right? Or you used copy that belonged to them, or you took their tagline or whatever. Or I'm sure we're gonna have a conversation about AI because I love AI and I love how people are tapping into it. And you need to be careful with this kind of stuff, right? So, welcome our experts in the field today. They're going to introduce themselves. They're going to tell you exactly what they do and why you should listen to them. So again, if you have questions, throw them in the comments. If you're watching this on replay over at the YouTube channel or wherever you might be seeing bits and pieces of it, ask away. I'm going to share in the links in the show notes. There's going to be links to connect with each of the experts so that you have a source, a go-to person, especially if you want to hire somebody to expand your business. So thank you very much, ladies, for being here, for being committed. So Kat, go ahead and share first. Tell us who you are, who you serve, and why you're the expert. Why should we listen to you?
Sure. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here. My name is Kat. I am the founder of Profesh Digital Marketing, and we're a full service digital agency. So any sort of web copy, emailing, ads, like anything that you're writing, anything you can think of that you associate with marketing, we do it. But in 2024, we've really started focusing on email marketing. Liisa just alluded to this a little bit because of AI. So, my specialty is helping small and medium businesses all the way up into enterprise dig into their email lists or build them from scratch if you're not there yet. And figure out kind of what you're leaving on the table. Like, what can we do in this post-ads economy where it's getting so expensive, it's unreliable to just focus on ads? What can we do with our emails, and what is kind of in that data that can help us generate revenue and do it quickly while also, focusing on building value and authentic relationships with our clients.
Beautiful. I love that. And Kat was on my podcast, and her episode, when it comes out, you guys are going to get a whole lowdown on that email because everyone says email is dead. Yeah, no, it's not. It's
Not
alive and
dead.
active, and it's your go-to. That's the only thing you own. Thank you for sharing that. Lisa.
I'm going to sound like a broken record or like Kat, right? So I'm going to say a lot of the same things. So I'm Liisa. I'm the founder of 2i Copy. It's a small copywriting studio where we're really helping small businesses, small to medium businesses stand out from the crowd using personality packed words that sell and really helping people shine in this digital, ever increasingly saturated space. And so one of the things that I also specialize in, expert is such a such a weird word. Like I don't want to attach it to me because I feel like I still have so much to learn, especially when everything is changing. But I specialize in helping people start their email list with a juicy lead magnet because oftentimes people don't know how to inspire people to join their email list in the first place. So that is something that we work on. And I do a series of, either done for you copy or done with you copy or courses and workshops so people can figure out how to do it better themselves. Because, Kat, in the digital space, there's like 6 million businesses started annually in the US alone, and we can't serve them all. So teaching them to understand this digital messaging space and how to stand out and not be cookie see, I choke on that word, cookie cutter, is kind of what I do, helping them pull out their brand stories and what really makes them unique, and can give value to their specific audience.
Yeah, and so important and however that's delivered, but email is definitely king, right? King of
It's definitely not dead. I think I read one stat recently that for every dollar you put into email marketing, you can get up to $44 back. That's a 44,000, yeah, I do words, not numbers, percent ROI, right? So it's
Yeah,
huge.
I
It's
believe
really
it.
huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Lisa, we need to partner because I'm definitely further upstream where my clients have already built a list and have something happening. I don't as much focus on the early days, so this is perfect. We should talk.
Yay.
Yeah, definitely. You two connect. And and I always thought especially when I first started online in August of 20, like, what do I need someone to help me with emails for? But if you sit there and you think about, like, I look at my nurture sequence, I have the money archetype quiz where you can, choose who your archetype is. There's 7 to choose from, and they each have their own email sequence. And as I was writing it, like, I know all that stuff, but I tend to write like way up here because I've
Hmm.
been in finances since 1987. It's just like, okay, dumb it down, dumb it down. Like, how much dumber does it need to get? But it's so important because if you're sending emails out to somebody that's not reading them, it makes it so frustrating. And I think that's
Right.
why everybody thinks investing in email, investing in copyright is not a good thing to do because who's reading them anyways, especially since that unsubscribe button happened last, what is it, February?
Hmm.
So when you think about the copywriting and the emailing, making it very specific for your brand, a lot of online coaches want to build credibility and trust with their target audience, but they have this mental block. And one of the biggest blocks they have is that they feel like they're competing in a saturated market. Who would like to address that? So how can investing in this help them build their credibility and change that perspective for them of, I don't want to invest in copywriting or PR because my market's too saturated and it doesn't matter because nobody's reading it anyways.
Yeah.
Well, my question then back to you is like, do you want to sell your stuff or do you want to go back to the 9 to 5? Like, are you a business owner with something to sell or not, right? Do you just want to do this as a hobby or do you actually want to make money from it? So we all hire experts for different things, even as personal individuals, right? Like I would never do my surgery myself. I would never cut my hair myself. Been there, done that. It was a disaster, right? You can't see the back of your head. And that's why your marketing people, they can see the back end of your business. They have a perspective that you don't. And even as marketers ourselves, like we are not always as business owners who know our business intimately, who are super passionate about what we do. we're not necessarily the right people to go out and sell ourselves, because we say too much. And like you were saying, Lisa, at the beginning, that jargon, all those complicated words, it's not so much about dumbing it down, but it's like, how would you explain it to somebody really clearly so the first time you say it, they're like, oh yeah, I know exactly what that is. That's the challenge. And
Mhm.
business owners can't usually do that for themselves.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think it's generally best practice too in writing overall, but especially for content writing and email marketing is, I think it's like a seventh grade reading level that they recommend. And that is difficult. That's a hard practice. And it
Mm-hmm.
takes, it takes a team, so even if you are trying to DIY as much as you can, having somebody there to help you it's invaluable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. And
definitely a
it's
great
not, sorry.
investment. No, go
Hmm.
ahead.
I was just going to add, it's not always just the words, but it's the broader concepts around those
Hmm.
words too, right? Like, we know intimately what all those things are. Like, we take a lot for granted because we've done all the steps, but it's really hard to sort of put yourself back at the beginning and be like, what didn't I know way back when? And that's where you need to start.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and I'll tell you what, it's almost like the practice itself of sitting down and figuring out your copy with somebody. It helps you figure out, is the market actually saturated or is this a me problem? Either way, it is a bit of a problem if it is saturated. Like, what
Mm-hmm.
am I doing? Right? It
Mm-hmm.
is going to require some changes and pivots, but that's really powerful. So, pausing and asking yourself, like, is this me and my dread talking because I just really don't want to do this? Or
Mm-hmm.
do I have bigger questions to answer? In which case, how am I going to overcome that? I have a really fun example. I was working with an astrologer who was feeling this. Like, I can't get this off of the ground. Like, I'm busy enough with word of mouth, but my emails are I have a very small list, and even that list isn't working. And through our conversations and kind of brainstorming strategies, I asked, well, have you ever thought about doing astrology services for businesses? Like, you live in a small town that has like some like-minded businesses that might like it. And it just exploded. Like, from that moment and that one conversation talking about email strategy and what the problems were, because she was feeling some saturation, it created some innovation. So,
Mm-hmm.
if we can just pause and be okay thinking a little bit, it can be kind of fun.
Yeah, yeah. I think I also want to go back to the original question, which is building trust and credibility. Email is a great way to show up and show that you show up consistently, right? Like,
Mhm.
so you're not waiting for somebody to like see your stuff in their social feed, or, especially now we see with all the algorithm changes, we're all seeing a lot more ads and stuff that aren't the people that we follow. So you're not waiting for somebody to find your stuff, your content. You're in their inbox. It's a more intimate relationship. They invited you into the party, to their home, so to
Mhm.
speak. And so you can really build that relationship and nurture it so much better, that then they're going to be more likely to trust you and think of you as an expert and buy from
Mhm.
you if you do it right. That's the
Yeah.
other thing, right?
Yeah, there's a stat. I think it's like 92 or 93% we're more likely as consumers to buy something um, from someone, like an individual, even if we don't know them, over a
Mm-hmm.
brand. And,
Yeah.
getting in their inbox and what you're putting on your website, telling your story, it makes you a thought leader. Like, you go on
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn and you have these founders, CEOs, like all these entrepreneurs positioning themselves as thought leaders, but they are a business, like they are a brand, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we get ahead of that. And then I think PR is just as important. Like, if your content is you telling your story, then PR would be, magnifying that story. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's just telling it louder and getting you across all of the channels. So both are so important.
Yep.
Yeah,
Agree.
definitely. And I was thinking, like, with the saturated market, I was like, I live in Florida. So last week we were dealing with Hurricane Milton, and 3,000 people or 3 million people in Tampa lost power right when, the hurricane, we had 97 tornado watches and I don't know how many touched ground. But I thought, okay, wait a minute, 3 million people in Tampa. that's just a small little area. So how can the
Mhm.
market be saturated, right? I'm on a mission to help 1 million women become millionaires without sacrificing their self-sovereignty, right? And I always think 1 million is such a big number. And I do the stats, right? I crunch the numbers as a financial person and I'm like, okay, well, if I do this, it's going to take this long. If I do this, da 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 da. And I'm like, well, okay, the longest it's going to take, I'll be 90 years old if I do nothing, right? If I don't show up in my business. And I was just like, but 3 million people lost power. Like that puts it in perspective. Like I don't think any of the markets are saturated. And I'm always like, anytime you put anything about your health on social media, you get inundated with like health coaches and women over 40. And I'm like, women over 50, like heal your gut. It's the root cause. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I got like 25 ads coming my way.
Mhm.
And it's not saturated because I mean I get to choose like, okay, what program, I've been through so many different programs to heal my gut, like what program is best for me. So
Mhm.
that's just the lie that we tell ourselves as entrepreneurs that the market's saturated. It isn't saturated. The problem really is get a mirror out and look in it. It's you.
Yeah, no, 100%. If you're trying to be like all the others, then yes, it's saturated, but nobody is like you. Nobody brings your background, your context, your experiences to the table. And you sort of hit upon a recent example, think of faceless marketing right now, right? Like suddenly
Um,
everybody exploded and there's no individual behind it. Like who are you getting to know?
Mhm.
Nobody.
yeah.
People buy from people for different reasons in different ways. It's all about buyer behavior, your messaging, who you're appealing to. But heck, if you can sell farts in a jar on the internet, the market is not saturated. There's room for
Pet
you.
rocks. Yeah.
The end.
That's so
Hey,
true.
Pet Rocks. We bought Pet Rocks. I remember in the 70s I was, my mom and I were shopping at this store. It was like a Two Guys. It was called Two Guys. It's kind of like a Walmart, right? And
Mhm.
they had Pet Rocks. And I love rocks, right? And I'm like, Mommy, Pet Rock. She's like, and she's a divorced mom. She's like, we cannot afford a pet rock. You know what she did? And I still have this rock. It's downstairs. We went home and we got a rock out of the garden. We painted it.
Oh.
Here's your pet rock.
Perfect.
And she kept it when she passed away 6 years ago, a couple days ago, and it was her anniversary of her death. But I was cleaning out her stuff, and she still had this rock from when I was like in
Oh.
second grade. But I'll never forget that. It was pet rocks, and yeah, how many people bought those because they didn't, oh, you could just go paint a rock from your garden.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm, mhm.
So yeah, so where there's a will, there's a way, is what she
Mhm.
always used to say. Look at I'm
So
rhyming.
true.
I'm a poet, didn't know.
Moms were smart.
Oh, I can't help myself today. Um, so, when we think about the measurable results, when we talked about multiplying our ROI, what can coaches expect from a solid strategy and how can they see these results directly impact their business growth and revenue? I know for me, one of the things that runs through my head over the summer, I took a how to program chat, right? Course and like asking it the right questions. And I was doing it mostly for hook statements because I have to make reels and I hate making reels. And it's like, I don't know what a hook statement is. So I would program it and I use it for my to make graphics for my insurance business. And I learned all the things that it could possibly do. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, like this is scary. So I have clients, we won't mention any names, we'll protect your identity. Look what I made through ChatGPT, a whole ebook. Yeah, no, you did not. That's not cool. But this fear of if I can just, create something through chat, through AI, why invest in an expert like yourself? What would be the ROI on that?
Yeah. I
I
mean, you go ahead. You first. Like, we could talk
No,
forever. I
no, go
think
for it.
about
Go
this.
for it. I was just going to say, try it and then come talk to me when it doesn't work.
Exactly. I mean, exactly. It's so funny because part of me is very on board with the idea of everything is derivative, right? Like it is a fair game and fair practice. If I see a service doing something where I think that's a really good idea, but man, they're not doing it very well, or that service was really crappy. Like I'm not very happy with my experience, but like the idea is great, so I can do that better. Like that kind of thing. I understand it. Um, and AI is that just times 1 million. And that's going to show. Like consumers are really smart. We are getting inundated with everything all the time. Like information age is crazy. And they're going to be, I mean, our radar for AI is just going to get higher and higher. Like AI is learning, but so are we, right?
Mhm.
So exactly to your point, Lisa, it's like good luck, go for it.
Yeah.
And also find that balance because I am all about ChatGPT. I'm all about AI and using it as tools, especially to save time. It's a great way to gather a bunch of data all at once, data that I can then go and verify. It's a good way to put together long lists of things or, hook statements, as you said, SEO optimization. Like there are a lot of things out there where it gets me in a really nice starting point and helps me learn a lot really quickly about industries, especially if I'm taking on a client where I haven't been in that
Mhm.
industry yet, right? It's just not going to replace humans. Like, and
Yeah.
that brings me joy because then I'd be out of a job. And there's some things that humans will always have to do. Um, and we would want it to be that way. Like, it's exactly what we're saying about emailing and telling your story. Um, Nobody can replace my story. No one can tell my story and my brand story and how I got here. And that resonates with people.
Mhm.
And there's a reason that that works. Like when you have a really strong content and copy message, what you're basically saying when they come to your, whether it's social profiles or in your emails or your website, you're telling them, like, hi, I see you. I understand your problem. I get it, especially as coaches, right? Like that's the whole point. And I'm here. Like, let's work together because I understand on a deep human level what's going
Mhm.
on. And here is some value that I'm offering you. So if we're talking about an ebook you wrote on ChatGPT in 20 minutes and you give this to them, I'd be really annoyed. Like, wow, okay, you genuinely don't get it clearly because this is not useful to me. I could have done this myself. And I think that's the difference. Try it once, try it twice, see if it works, and then come back to us, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think too, like what is it that when you say see if it works, what does that actually do, right? We have to
Mhm.
quantify what that is. I think I agree with you. I think AI is a fantastic tool. I use it for like brainstorming, like you said, a little bit of like industry understanding when I
Mhm.
don't know it intimately. And when it first came out, I was just like pissed off. I was like, I'm not gonna touch it. It's like, no, it's the devil. It's coming after my job. And then I was like, well, wait a minute. I can't be like an ostrich and bury my head in the sand because then I'm just gonna miss it, everything. But now I sort of see it as kind of like when, these things came out, right? Suddenly everybody was a photographer because, the camera capability on smartphones was just phenomenal. But nobody's showing up to do a wedding or shoot a wedding with an iPhone, right? That same kind of thing. I think AI is great for people who are just starting out, who are trying to build a presence, who are trying to find their way in the world. But when you're then trying to differentiate your brand, you really need to understand who you are, what your voice is, and what your clients, your ideal clients, are going to respond to and resonate with them the most. Like we said earlier, people buy from people. AI isn't people. Well, it is. It's a conglomeration of all the voices out there in the world, right? But none of them sound like you. So for you to make your way and blaze your trail, carry your flag, it has to be your voice. And AI can't do that for you. You have to do that discovery. And when you hire somebody like Kat and me, I don't know how much you get into brand voice, Cat, with folks, but that's one of the things that I do. And you can't, the worst is when you get a client and you're like, okay, so what's your brand voice? What are your principles? What are your values? And how can we infuse them into the copy? And they're like, well, I'm perky and peppy and just make it sound professional. It's like, it doesn't work that way. That's just not how it is. So, that's where the expert, a specialist, can really help guide you because ultimately what you want is conversions, right? And then so you need to look at what is resonating with people. You have to look at your data. You have to look at your bounce rates, your clicks throughs, your open rates, if we're talking about emails or web, and track all of those things and then know what to tweak in order to improve it.
Mhm. It's so true. Yeah, I totally agree. I can't tell you because I have a lot of clients coming to me kind of midstream where they have
Mm-hmm.
a list and they're not using it. It's so much of the time, I would say 75% of the time, we're going back to square one to say, okay, well, what is your voice? Like,
Hmm.
and maybe half of the time from there, we are kind of redoing those exercises of, is this what you wanted your voice to be? And um, I'd be interested if you agree. I find we overcomplicate it sometimes.
Hmm.
And, because it is our story, it does not have to be so difficult to tell. It's about
Yeah.
putting it to paper and making it sound nice, but it doesn't have to be buttoned up and super professional. And in fact, that, I get a million of those emails and I don't enjoy reading them. Most of the time, I don't read them.
Yeah.
But you tell me a joke, you say something funny, maybe a little sarcastic in my inbox, then I might perk up and pay
Hmm.
attention.
Yeah.
So those are, it's good reminders, and it can be fun to see the lights turn on in people's eyes when we get there. But it is a lot of like, okay, let's go back to
Yeah.
square one and remember who we are.
100%. I think this also goes back to, the speaking to a seventh grader or eighth grader or 7-year-old or 12-year-old. There's the age keeps changing. But if you sound different in person than the content that you're putting out, people are going to see that and they're going to be like, wait a minute. She swears in person and she uses words like ABC, but in this email, it's all delve and ensure. And,
Yes.
right? Like, so there's a disconnect. So you want to be the same in person as you are in your content. The other piece of, and this goes to your point, Kat, about overcomplicating it, a brand voice guide, I think, really also helps you understand what you will speak out on and what you won't. So we have a lot of causes and activities and advocacy issues that brands tend to jump on when everybody else is jumping on them because they're like, oh, I should say something about this. But if it doesn't really relate to your business or you've never spoken about it before because it's not something that's in your brand handbook, and then that's going to come out as inauthentic. And then, if you are ever, when you get to the point where you want to outsource some of your, or maybe it's your socials or your email marketing, just one piece, if you give it to somebody with no parameters, no guidelines, they are not going to sound like you. They're going to sound like them. And then those things are going to butt heads. And then your brand will be, people will be like, this makes no sense. I don't know what's going on. I'm not going to buy from them because I'm confused now.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah. And behind the scenes, it's hard too, whenever you start to realize, oh my gosh, things aren't working. And you have all these different pieces that are all doing slightly different things. How do you unravel that thread from this
Mm-hmm.
knot where you think, like, what piece of this did I break? Like, oh, everything's a little broken. Like, oh gosh.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, and all of that. I mean, like I'm sitting here thinking, my email needs to be upgraded. It's just like I just redid some of my sequences, and it's just like, am I really speaking the way like to talk in my email? And I know for a long time I hid, and I was working on that this year. It's like, you show up one way online, and then you show up a different way writing. And like I like how you pointed out, like you should be the same person. And
Mm-hmm.
I think we have this, idea that we have to put on like this marketing hat or this,
Yeah.
I have to be this way in order to get it. And then you wonder why you're not making any money in your business. You wonder why clients aren't coming your way because you're not authentically showing up as yourself. And like if you want great content, you need to talk. I know for me, one of I like to give myself challenges in order to do something. And so I have Otter, and what I do is I'll voice record all of my content and my thoughts, and then I'll transcribe it, and I'll be like, oh, that's how I talk. And it's like, oh, and it's so
Mm-hmm.
easy for me. And for whatever reason, when I walk and talk, I'm even more authentic than if I'm sitting down. It's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
interesting how I don't know why that
It's
is.
all psychology, 100%. It's because you are more present and grounded that you can think more clearly. It actually is like in science and how our brains work. It's
Mm-hmm.
fascinating. Yeah, I do the same
Yeah.
thing. I will record things while I'm driving. Um, it's kind of the reverse of, you're driving and you wake up all of a sudden you're like, how did I get here? Like I don't remember driving.
Mm-hmm.
I do
It's
that
the
all the
reverse.
time.
All the
That's not
time.
good.
It's
Whoops.
yeah, the same thing happening, but in the reverse, where we're like being really, really present, and we're not kind of like in a box. That's how I think about myself sometimes when I'm at my desk too long, is I feel like I've put myself in this like a computer box, I guess. And I have to get up and kind of shake it off, and I come back with a totally different perspective. And so I mean that's an amazing practice, and it allows us to innovate more, really.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
yeah, voice recording, it's a good one.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and it doesn't even have to be that complicated either, right? So like there are some people that just can't, whether they're not tech savvy or it's too many things, just write it and then read it out loud and you will immediately be like, "Oh no, I'm tripping over my words. I would never say it this way."
Yeah.
That's a great way to do it too. So it doesn't have to be complicated.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah.
true.
Yeah, and it's so important to do that. And it's so simple, but yet we complicate it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking of my one client who we had a conversation last week on our call, and she's like, I just can't market because I don't know what to write. I'm like, well, just voice record it and then read what you write, and then you should be fine. She still hasn't done it. And then like she's asking me like, well, how do I grow my membership? I'm like, you show up and let people know you have one.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But maybe she can
Just
use it for her
start.
services. Yeah, just
Yeah.
start. But there are a lot of coaches out there. I did a workshop last night and there was three entrepreneurs on there and none of them are marketing themselves because they're petrified to
Mm-hmm.
write something. And they don't want to, like, you had mentioned earlier about these faceless reels and things. They don't want to show up on a live. And I'm like, what's so scary about showing up on a live? And I guess, public speaking or whatever. I mean, I've done it so often. I'm trying to think of the first time I went live on Facebook. I was like, I mean, it was a challenge. Someone gave me a challenge to go live on Facebook for 7 days in a row, and I did it. And I remember the
Mhm.
first time I was like all scared and like, what are you scared of? It's just, you're just talking to a phone.
Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
true.
No
I
big
have
deal,
I
you
have a
know?
lot of doctors as my clients, like in healthcare, and
Mhm.
they will go to speaking engagements at different conferences, and they'll stand up in front of, thousands of other doctors and talk about the research. But you try to get them to do a reel, and it's like, they clam up and they don't know what to do, or um, try to explain something just to Instagram, and it's the same thing. So what we have done, and this is a similar practice to what you were just saying, Lisa, is we'll just hop on a Zoom and I'll tell them like, let's just talk. And I have a lot of questions. Like, let's talk about this new procedure or let's talk about whatever. Like, I'm a layman, so I'm going to ask the same questions that your patient would. And then it's just a normal conversation. And so that can be a really helpful practice. Record a conversation with your, sister or with your spouse or with a friend, somebody who will just ask you questions about your brand and record that and transcribe it. And boom, you have a bunch of copy there that's going to help you proactively answer questions before they're asked in your emails, on your website, in a blog. Like now you have 10 blog topics answering each of
I
these
love
questions.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Because I hate doing reels. And when I do
Mhm.
reels, I'm like, oh, create a hook statement. I'm like, why? I don't talk like that. I don't talk in hook statements.
Yeah.
Like I'll say stop. Like every time I ask a question about what's the first thing you do with your money when you get it? And 99% of the people will say, I pay bills. I'm like, just stop paying your bills, okay? Your money's not
Yeah.
going to multiply if you pay your bills. And like that's my hook statement. Like that's me. But it's like, yeah, I get totally aggravated because like, why are you doing this with your money? Just stop it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Don't pay your bills first.
Yeah. I think too,
Totally.
part of it, I mean, is what we see in our social feeds is so polished that when we first starting out in our business as being the face of the business, you're like, it's such a high standard that we hold ourselves to. It's like, oh, I got to get the lighting right, or I got to get the right position, or like, oh, I got to double chin, or like, whatever it is. And we just totally put pressure on ourselves that we don't need to, and we don't realize that what we see is people well into their journeys. We're not seeing all the other stuff, so
Mhm.
just take a deep breath, go
Yep.
for it. And I like your idea, Kat, of getting on just a Zoom and talking it out. One of the things I do and did when I first started out was just have a private Facebook group and just go live in there and flub it all the time
Mhm.
and not worry about it. And then be like, okay, this is how it works. I'm getting more comfortable, and then you can just go do it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think it's a good reminder for all of us that we really are all in the same boat. Like I have gotten a lot of word of mouth clients or just, clients through friends or, just through talking casually.
Hmm.
Because I agree, like things are hard. Like can be really complicated. I still have self-doubt all the time. Like I struggle with like pulling the plug when something doesn't work because I get emotionally tied to it. Like there's
Hmm.
just so many things that we all struggle with, and that's
Hmm.
okay, right? Like let's give ourselves permission to be humans and to admit it. And, I bond a lot with my clients and I learn a lot from things that they've done in the past that have worked or that haven't. And I share those as well. Like it really is this relationship where if you succeed, I succeed, and then let's kind of help each other jump over the valleys that we've seen in the past.
Mhm.
And that's okay. Like it's a good reminder we don't have to be so polished. And in fact, if that's like the differentiator, then by all means, we got this.
Mhm.
We don't have to be perfect, we'll fail, and that's okay. And we have it. Like we're gonna be okay. Right. So
Hmm.
it's both of those things are true.
Mhm.
Yeah. And for the coaches out there that are listening, because I know all of you are like tuning in and you're writing down, you're taking notes. If you're not, you should be. So go hit rewind if you're watching this on the replay. But what are some of the biggest missed opportunities when coaches delay implementing this strategy? Like what are some of the pitfalls in not doing this and not taking action? Because I know a lot of coaches are out there like, oh, I'm listening, but I'm not going to do anything because I don't want to spend the money because, I'm a hoarder and I want to keep all the money to myself.
Mhm.
You
Yeah,
know who
it's your
you are.
time. It's your time, people. You're wasting time. Time is money. Especially if we're talking about like building audiences. It'll be really interesting to hear your take on this, Lisa, about like starting your email lists and getting those lead gates going, your lead magnets and all of that. But it's, I just admitted to this, like not being able to let go of things that I thought would really work and they didn't. I'll hold on to them a little bit too tightly because I'm not ready to admit defeat. And that's a
Mhm.
waste of time. It's a waste of money. And especially at the beginning, like you just got to jump in and you have to start doing it, even if it's scary. Like be scared and do it anyway, because
Yeah.
otherwise you're wasting all of your time. And in fact, you're giving your competitors time to take up even more clients or to tell your story for you. Like if you're not going to
Yeah.
tell it, but they know you're out there, it's easy for them to tell it.
Yeah.
And what is it? It's the rule of seven. Traditionally it's like seven touch points before someone will buy something, and like they need to see you or interact with your brand seven
The
times.
11 to 17 now.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say is I think it has to be at least double, but it sounds like it's more than double because we
Yeah.
get so much information every day. Like seven
Yeah.
is not enough, so that
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many people I work with who are like, huh, that wasn't as bad as I thought. Like, see, right? And like you said, time is money, but time is time. You can't get it back.
Hmm.
And not doing it, waiting, procrastinating, whatever you want to call it, not feeling ready, that can a lot of the time mean the difference between your business succeeding or not, because you need money.
Hmm.
You're in this business maybe to be philanthropic or to make an impact and all this great stuff, but at the bottom end of it, if you're not making money, you can't make that impact. You can't give to charities all the things that you want to do. So the more you wait, the less fast you'll grow and the more likely you're going to fail, which is going to make you feel like crap. And then you're going to go back to that 9 to 5 that doesn't pay you, that made you miserable in the first place, right? Like, so it's all those things. It's going to stop you from succeeding. So
Hmm.
get out there and do it. And it's like when we do really scary things like climb a ladder or I don't know, base jump or jump out of a plane, you're all like, oh, that was kind of fun actually. Well, I want to do it again.
Yeah, it's so true. And it really compounds itself, right? Like you can't get it back. It's such a good point. And then let's say you have, competitors that are working on your same audience, then they're getting those word of mouth referrals that you could have gotten. And then they're getting those referrals from there. And their presence continues to increase and compound on itself. And even if you're neutral, like that still compounds in a negative way. Like you are
Mhm.
moving further and further just by doing nothing. And so it really is everything. It's
Yeah.
like one word is time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think too is like, there's a lot of, especially as women, there's a lot of you should do this and you should follow this path. And I
Mhm.
think it's really important to note that there is no black and white path, right? Like, so choose the thing that's going to work for you. And the thing that's going to work for you is the thing that you're going to actually do and stick to. So maybe that is email, maybe it's not. Maybe it's Facebook, maybe it's LinkedIn. Like, start somewhere with something that feels maybe the least scary, right? And then just, give yourself permission to have fun with it. One of my biggest philosophies is if it's not fun, don't do it, because I know myself. If I don't want to do it, I won't do it. And
Mhm.
so make it fun, find a way to get some joy out of it, and know that your way is the right way for you. Somebody else's way is not necessarily the right way for you.
Yeah, and I love that. And from a financial point of view, if you look at your current email, your current situation, and how much, like you look at your funnels, right? When I do
Mhm.
profit gold audits, I always look at the marketing funnel and say, okay, like here's your profit margin goal is, $10,000 a month, right? What do you need to do to make that 10,000 and how are you doing it? And what's your signature offer? And a lot of times there's a hole, a big, huge gaping hole, and they're like, I don't know. And when you look at your email, like you don't have any opens, maybe your emails are going to spam. I just cleaned out my spam yesterday and there's it's like 10 emails from this one person who wants to, edit my podcast and like how they would be the great person. I'm like, well, first of all, you got to get your emails out of spam because I'm just
Mhm.
deleting all of this. And like, and I think about that, like, a lot of times, we're so busy hustling after the money, chasing after the money, that we're not paying attention to our back end finances and the operating expenses and all of that and looking to say, is this working? And when
Mhm.
we look at, is it working? If your email campaigns aren't working, if what you're doing in the PR world and your copy isn't converting, there's a big gaping hole there and you need to change something. Maybe it's your attitude. I don't know. That's what my problem was. I had to get out of my own way. So just something to think about when you're like, oh, should I invest? And from a financial point of view, this is a business expense. You get to write it off on your taxes. So think
Mhm.
about that. Really, it's a win-win. And I was in the group I was doing the workshop with last night. They were asked one of the questions they asked me. Well, they're like, I'm just starting off in my entrepreneur world, and I don't have any money to invest. And I've had tons of people on my show that you don't need a lot. You can organically launch your business. You don't need a lot
Mhm.
of money. And if you think in comparison what you're going to invest in copyright, in PR, and if it's going to get, like Lisa said earlier, 44%. Okay, hello? That's unheard of. Okay, the standard is around five, maybe you can get a 7% ROI.
Yeah.
44% people. Think about that.
44,000.
Yeah, that's crazy.
44,000.
44,000%.
44,000%. There you go. The experts
Yeah.
have spoken. Listen.
Yeah.
Right.
Don't not even listen, but just like soak it in, process it, do more research, check these ladies out. Go get their freebies and figure it out and have a call with them because you can't make a decision unless you gather the information, right? And by not gathering the information, you are throwing money out the window. You're leaving money on the table.
Mhm.
So our last question for the panel is, practical first steps. Online coaches seem to be gathering all these shiny objects and they have no idea what order to put them in. So what practical first steps can they take to assess whether they're ready for copyright coaching for PR? And how can they ensure that what they do invest in what could they look for when working with a professional that they know it's a good fit and because not everybody clicks the right way.
Yeah. I would say, I tell people it is the same as looking for a therapist. Like, you've got to find the right fit, and you're not always going to vibe with everyone out there, right? And I make that really clear. Whenever I'm doing consultations, it's genuinely no pressure. If somebody is trying to really, really sell you on them and doing like something immediately with them, like that's a red flag for me. Like I'm not successful. Like if I bring you on and we're not a right fit and this doesn't go well, or I don't have the right expertise for whatever cycle you're in, like that's my failure, and ultimately that's gonna hurt me in my business and my retention rates down the line. And so, go out and talk to coaches, like schedule some consultations and just talk, and you will learn. And then you'll know when you find your right fit. So that's the first thing for me. And then I would also just say, make sure you are asking them questions about their retention rates, for example, like how many clients stay with them and for how long, and what do they generally use as KPIs to measure if those results working with you are successful or not. Um, get your KPIs together. What have you been tracking and where are you struggling? Kind of have that ready. Um, and then one thing I would say that's a bit of encouragement is just remember, you really should be expecting like a 3 to 5x on whatever investment you're putting into your content. And that's what they should be able to help you deliver. Like 5xing whatever you're putting in is amazing. 3 to 5 is a good range of expectation. And that always helps me. I don't do everything myself. Like I pay other people to help me. And that helps me whenever I'm feeling a little crunched or I'm struggling a
Mm-hmm.
little bit. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if I have $1, where do I put it? And so knowing that if I put this over here, it's going to turn into $5 more quickly, like that's the decision that I tend to make. So that's
Yeah.
my little, 2-minute spiel on that.
Well, thank you.
For me, it's really like make sure before you try and hire somebody, make sure you have a strategy, first of all, and that you know what is and isn't working already. So, a lot of people, when they're first starting out and their copy isn't converting, they're like, okay, I need ads. Like, I need to jump into ads. And I think you really need to focus on organic conversions first, because what converts organically, then you can put money behind in an ad and boost that and get more of those conversions. But if your organic copy isn't converting to begin with, your ads aren't going to convert either, because it's going to be the same language. So walking that back a little bit is really making sure that you have a strategy and clear goals of what you want to accomplish. And this seems like a no-brainer, but I can't tell you how many people are like, I want, sorry, I'm choking. I want more clients, right? Well, what does that mean? What kinds of clients? What do you want them to buy? Where are you talking to them? How are you talking to them? What are they responding to? And a lot of people don't know. So it's great to have that big idea of what you want to accomplish, but then you have to have that strategy of like, okay, what's my quarterly benchmarks? What are my monthly milestones? What are my weekly actions that I need to take to get there? Because a lot of people are throwing spaghetti on the wall. I'm like, okay, oh, like this month I wrote 2 blog posts and I sent 3 emails and I wrote 5 social media posts, but nothing's working. What's not working and what did you hope to hit? Because that can help us then create a content or copywriting strategy or figure out what to focus on first. And that's going to be really important. So strategy and implementing and having measurable goals and actually measuring them is really
Yeah.
important.
That's so true. And I would say, just to add to that, especially when I'm working with people that are looking to scale, all of
Mm-hmm.
those things, like all of these conversations are happening with the understanding underneath that you already have the systems in place to be
Mm-hmm.
able to scale, right? So you need to know your goals, and then you need to know you can support them. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what people forget a lot of the times. And then, you're doing the work, and let's say you succeed and you get 50 clients overnight, and then what happens? Like,
Yeah.
I didn't know that this would happen. It would actually work like magic. And now I can't support them. And now they're really upset. And now what? Right.
Now your business
Um,
is going to tank the other way.
yes.
Yeah.
So, you have to be prepared. And that's one thing with coaches and with experts in the field, they can really help you make sure that it's sustainable. And, I know it's not as, sexy and fun to say like slow and steady, but genuinely, we all get a much more wealthy and much more successful when our clients are really happy with us and that we are building in a sustainable way. And experts can help you, look
Yep.
ahead, like stay two steps ahead rather than one behind.
Right. We can see your blind spots that you may not be able to see yourself, and that's really valuable. Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's definitely priceless. So for those of you listening, like if you have not been inspired by these experts in your copyright, your PR, what you're doing, and you're like, gee, I wonder why my stuff isn't converting, I think you need to go hop on a call. So share with us verbally what's the best way for our audience to connect with you?
Yeah, you can get me on emailrevamp.com. There's a free training there that's genuinely free. I promise you, I'm not selling you. Go watch it. It's only half an hour. And then there's also on that same page a link where you can schedule a 30-minute call with me. The same, no pressure. We can just chat and see where it goes.
Yeah,
Perfect.
very similar. You can find me at 2icopy.com. There's also a link. I do 20-minute free calls for people just to like solve a problem in your copy. Bring a piece of copy, bring a problem. We'll talk it through, no pressure. And I have a lot of resources on there as well. Some free courses and not free, but cheap free. So yeah, I love to help people and solve problems. 2iCopy is where I am.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, ladies, for sharing your time with us and your expertise. And I gleaned a lot out of this. I'm like, I think somebody needs to look at my copy.
Happy
Show
to.
me, show me my blind spots. So for those of you listening out there, please connect, check the show links, connect with one of these ladies, connect with them both, gather the information, and really think about investing in your business, being serious about increasing your ROI. Because if you really do want to hit those profit margin goals, this is the key thing that you want to look at other than how you're spending your money. Because remember, it doesn't matter how much money you have, it's what you do with it.
Thanks so much for having us on.
Yeah, thank you.